Here we go. All right, welcome everybody to the post-Christmas edition of Under the Dome, the pre-New Year's edition. Bob, I don't have little kids anymore. You do. How was Will's Christmas?
Will's Christmas was great. He had an ear to ear grin on him all day long. Which kind of brightened up the rest of our Christmas. Lauren was down sick. Bella was a little under the weather, so we didn't. We were supposed to go over to my parents for Christmas dinner. We didn't. We didn't want to bring that into their house, so we were kind of our Christmas dinner was Chinese because that was the only takeout that was open. But
Christmas story, Christmas.
Right. His ear to ear grin all day kind of brightened our day, kept our day bright.
Well, that's good. Did you have three Chinese men standing there going, "Deck the hall with how we walk"? Oh, I can't even do it. No. and then the duck, chop the head off the duck.
Yeah.
Smiling.
My movie's Chevy Chase's Christmas Vacation, but I get force fed the Christmas Story every year because that's what Lauren likes.
I enjoy both. Christmas Vacation, of course, because there's so many things that are relatable in Christmas. Mm-hmm. I do the whole gamut. I'll watch. My kids drives my kids crazy, and my wife to an extent too. She walks in and starts reciting the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But I watch A Christmas Carol every December.
Yep.
And I don't watch just one. I watch like 5 and 7 different versions of A Christmas Carol. And there are segments of the story is basically, not even the story is basically the same, because there's some versions I watch where they completely change the ending. He likes Christmas and all at the end.
Yeah.
But like there's one with what is his name now? I'm drawing a blank on it. It was supposed to be Lionel Barrymore because he did the radio version, and he actually doesn't play in the thing because he had gotten ill. So it's another guy who plays Scrooge, but they change a lot to the story. It ends with him going over to the Cratchit's house with the Christmas turkey, and that's where everything is all wonderful. And Fred and his fiance, they're not even married yet, come in, and Fred's going to be his partner now, and this whole bit. And it's very different, but I enjoy the different interpretations, and I read the story too.
I like reading the story. Jim Carrey's version a couple years ago, now as all Jim Carrey movies are, they're over the top, but that one was good. Patrick Stewart's rendition was the best I had seen since George C. Scott. That one was absolutely terrific. And I even like Bill Murray's Scrooged from back in the late 80s, early 90s. When it was for the time, it was a more modern version of Scrooge, where he's the TV executive, and his life just went into total greed and work related. So I even like that one too.
I'm a fan of the George C. Scott one. My wife really likes, Debbie really likes the Patrick Stewart one. I watch the Alistair Sim version, and a Muppet Christmas.
Oh yeah,
a Muppet Christmas Carol is also a must. Gonzo really carries that with him as the narrator. And Rizzo the Rat is basically the audience.
Uh-huh.
How do you now? Wait a minute. How do you know what's going on in there? Oh, I'm the omniscient narrator. Oh, Mr. Hoity-toity omniscient narrator. So it's no, it's not Randall Cunningham on this one. That is actually 1967. The Saints first ever win against the Eagles. First ever win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Flea Roberts.
I don't think I got a Randall Cunningham in there. I didn't put the 89 one on there in my little queue. I did put 91 in there. So there's quite a few in there, Chad. But yeah, so that's my holiday tradition is to watch those. And I was just saying, when the kids are grown up, and my daughter was in Breckenridge, my son came in town, but when the kids are older, it just doesn't feel like Christmas because you're not having the big, Santa and the Christmas presents and all that other stuff. So, it doesn't mean I didn't have a good Christmas. I had a very good Christmas, but
it changes, and I could say this now that he's out of the room. Frankly, it's a little bit depressing when that day comes, and I don't want to expound anymore. But you're a parent, so you know what that day means.
Yeah, I've told you the story before about how we had to break that down to my son, and that was actually rather entertaining. But yeah, when they stop being the kids and stop believing, don't have the magic anymore, it's a lot different. And when it's not, the excitement of getting up early and coming down and all that stuff. So, any big plans for New Year's?
We are if we get healthy, which right now is a big if. Member of cousin of Lauren's family is getting married Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, excuse me. So we'll be out there. It's a kid-friendly reception. So it'll be a family thing. I don't know how late it's going to be. I don't know whether we'll be home by midnight or not. I don't really care. We'll play it by ear. It was a reason for me not to drive 7 hours across the state to cover the Philadelphia game. And don't get me wrong, I love covering Saints games. I was not excited about the prospect of going to Philadelphia in any way, shape, or form. So I get to avoid that this weekend.
Well, my dad went to a Saints-Eagles game in Old Veteran Stadium.
Ooh.
And I want to say it was 90, maybe 92. It might have been earlier than that. I think he went in the 80s. I think he went, it was during the Moore years. So I have to go back and look. It wasn't 89 because that was in the Dome. So it could have been 88, 89, 89.
So Buddy was there by then, and they were good teams.
Yeah. But he made the mistake of wearing a Saints jacket to the game. He had a Saints starter coat that he wore to the game. So, and my dad's a pretty big guy. I mean, he can take care of himself now, and he had friends in there he was with, but man, those people at Veterans Stadium were giving him some shit. So it was not fun. It was not fun. He said that was one of that stadium and Giant Stadium were the two worst stadiums he ever watched a Saints game on the road in. He's a Giant Stadium. It was just awful. The one in the Meadowlands, the original one in the Meadowlands. He said, and halftime they don't have a band, they don't have anything. It's an empty field for 15 minutes. This is just awful. Seats are uncomfortable. Just everything was terrible about it. And I've had Eagle fans come to the Superdome and tell me how much they enjoy the experience and how the fans aren't rude to them.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a 92 playoff game, by the way, because I would have killed one. But no, this was just a regular Eagles game. But yeah, they just said it was just very different than what you experienced in Northeast if you're a rival fan coming to their stadium. So since you didn't go to the Browns game, I watched it. I watched it Christmas Eve. I know you did too.
Mm-hmm.
What was
another charge just went through for StreamYard. We paid for a whole year.
Okay.
And you just got charged for the month.
All right, I will find out what's going on with that. Okay. What was your takeaway of that game?
Generally speaking, I thought the Saints showed more character and resiliency than they have at any point in time this season. And it was something that I didn't expect from them, at this point in the year after what we have seen through most of the season. That's generally speaking. Yeah, specifically, I thought the offensive line got my number one game ball. Just they bullied the Browns all over the field. There was no trickery, in the running game. There couldn't be with the field conditions the way they were. The team that fired off the ball best would win that game, and that's exactly what the Saints did. And it was more impressive that they did it without both of their starting guards. Because of that, Taysom and Alvin were both, able to be effective. Defensively, I don't think anybody else has given nearly enough credit to the game Carl Granderson had. Demario played pretty well. Caden Ellis outshined him again, though. I thought Caden was all over the field. Generally speaking, I thought, coaches, players showed more character and resiliency than they have at any other point this year.
The Browns were playing for a playoff spot. That was an elimination game. Them go to the playoffs. And I thought, well, first off, the Saints, people are going to laugh at this, but, Dennis Allen outcoached the Browns coaching staff in that game. They put the ball in the air 31 times. And, the bulk of that was when they had the wind at their back in the second and fourth quarters. But regardless, this was a kind of game where you can't throw the football. I noticed that the Saints finally figured that out after the tipped interception.
Mm-hmm. After that interception, they threw the ball 6 times the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I think all 6 times was when they had the wind.
Yeah.
You weren't going to be able to throw the ball, that you were going to have to run the ball and punt and play field position, which was my thought process throughout the entire game. This was going to be a game where it was going to be a lot of punting and fans would get mad at the play calling, but you're playing, it's old school football. You're playing field position. And if you watch guys, defenders, trying to cut and keep up, they're on ice skates. They really are. Actually, I should say roller skates. They're on roller skates and they cannot cut. They're going to roll. They're going to slide all over the field. So that was part of the reason why, Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara were going to get some big runs because one cut, and if you get some guys blown off the ball, one cut, everybody else is sliding. You're going to get a first down. You're going to get a touchdown. You get big yardage. I was impressed with the intensity that the Saints came out there and played because this was a game where it was winnable, but if you were going to hang your head and go, that's just not our day, I don't want to be out in this weather and stuff like that, that was the kind of game to do it. It was the coldest game they've ever played in franchise history. And it was like 9 degrees with a wind chill, making it minus 15, something like that. So, there was nobody in the stands. They had to invite all the people from the upper bowl down to the lower bowl, and people just sitting in snow trying to watch a football game. The dog pound was a non-factor. Yeah. So it was the kind of game that you needed to win. I'm with you. I would give the offensive line game ball. I would give Taysom Hill game ball. Interception. What are the odds? And it was funny because they just said, Justin Evans went out with an injury, so now Daniel Sorensen's in at safety. Yeah. Play gets a pick off. Same thing, tip ball, that kind of stuff. What kind of world are we living in when Daniel Sorensen gets the turnover?
And it's a microcosm of the Saints season. Guys, just weird things, happening all year long. And you take it, because past Saints teams, past successful Saints teams, guys like that would make plays in key moments. When they were down to third and fourth stringers, which Daniel Sorensen at best, is exactly that. It was just heartening to see to see the strength of character that came out in this team. And look, it might be too little, too late, to make the playoffs this season. I mean, they literally only have one realistic scenario to get in. That is, of course, win out and have Tampa Bay lose both of their games. That happens and they're in. But yeah, even. And I know what different people are saying, that they want the Saints to lose, so Dennis Allen might get fired. Guys, I think it's too late for that. I think he comes back, unless the visor has a change of heart and comes back, and that's another story. But if he doesn't, Dennis Allen is going to be your coach next year. There's other people that want the Saints to lose, so they can get a higher draft pick, not in the first round, of course, but the second round. Look, these are competitors. They don't do that. You want to go into the offseason with momentum. And it's this type of game. And if they can finish strongly in their last two games, it's that type of taste that it really does carry over into the offseason and the next season. It makes your franchise believe, if you finish strongly, okay, well, maybe we aren't as far away from being a contender as what we thought at midseason. And maybe that's realistic. Maybe it's not. But you never want to go into your offseason on a down note, ever.
And that I want to kind of address one point you just brought up here. Tanking for a higher second round pick. And I know that the real reason they want to tank, they want to lose these games, is because they're deathly afraid if the Saints finish 7-10 or 8-9, they're only a game or two games off of what Sean Payton did last year with that team. So management will be less likely to fire Dennis Allen. Here's the thing, too. Let's just say you have a draft pick in the top 10 of every round. Okay. That's not the key to great drafting, because I can name about a half dozen players that the Saints have taken, and I'm just talking about recent. I'm not talking about back in the Meekum days, in the recent Saints history that didn't pan out. Being high draft picks. You think about like Andres Pete, for example, was just outside the top 10. I think he was 11 or 13, something to that
like
effect,
that.
somewhere around there. Meanwhile, a guy like Ryan Ramczyk was 28. Alvin Kamara was in the third round. Marcus Colston, seventh rounder.
Yep.
It's a successful. What made the 2017 draft great wasn't that they were picking high, but that they had multiple picks in the top 100. I think they had 6 picks in the top 100. That's the key to a great draft.
Yep.
You can get one good player, or you can get a half dozen good players in the top 100. I'd rather get the half dozen. I mean, so that's really the key to being a successful draft team. I know what it's like. You're sitting there waiting and you're watching the guy that you've had circled in your draft, mock drafts and everything else since, February, and or the Senior Bowl in January, and you're watching that guy slide down the board, and you're going, just make it to the Saints at this number, and this guy going and going down and going down, so I get that, and you want to make sure you're not that guy that, like the Saints were in 2017. Here they're watching Patrick Mahomes coming right to them, and then suddenly Kansas City trades up and grabs him. I get that. That could happen though. It doesn't matter where your draft selection is, because let's just say you really want, I don't know, CJ Stroud from Ohio State. Now, this is not going to happen, but let's just say CJ Stroud has a terrible personal workout day or gets injured during the combine, So talk is, he's probably not going to be ready this year. He's probably going to have to redshirt, his medical redshirt, his first year in the NFL. So, now teams that are desperate for a quarterback aren't drafting him unless they think they can stash him for a year. So you're watching CJ Stroud just drop, and he falls completely out of the first round. And here the Saints are picking 11th or 12th now because they won one of two games. They're picking 11th or 12th. And you're going, oh, yeah, CJ Stroud's going to be right there for us. We can get him. We just have to suck for a year, but we could get him. And if he doesn't work out, what the hell? We'll still suck, and we can get the kid from Caleb Williams from USC them next year, and here comes, I don't know, let's just say Tampa, just to piss everybody off. Tampa goes and makes a trade, and boom, they select CJ Stroud right in front of you. Well, you tanked. You were where you needed to be to get him. Here he's coming, and somebody trades up and grabs him. So, I mean, that's the part of the draft you can't control. So my attitude is win the games you can win. Get the best record you can possibly get.
Mm-hmm.
And worry about the draft when the draft rolls around. I'm more interested in getting multiple picks than I am right now selecting very high or very low.
Yeah, because and I agree with you, and I still believe that this team is very talented in a lot of spots, but they're more than just one player away from getting back into the Super Bowl, or even probably getting back into a perennial conference championship type of team, and I've never understood why a fan of any professional team would root for their team to tank in the first place. First of all, unless you've literally just been placed on Earth, for this year, for this calendar year, you have to know, if you've been a football fan, that the draft is an inexact science. Even by the experts, the men who get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this thing, let alone you folks that are couch GMs, or even Alan and I, who have been paid to do this kind of thing, for a number of years. It's an inexact science. So why would you want to root for your team to lose in any circumstance, let alone to potentially, maybe get a guy in the draft because you sucked that's going to turn out to be a bust, causing you to suck more. It's just it is beyond my mental realm of grasp.
Well, I mean, unless you are picking number one or no, I do not know why this is doing this. It just freezes and goes away. I was going to say, unless you're picking number one overall, and even then, it's not an exact thing, because in 1981, the Saints were picking number one overall, took George Rogers out of South Carolina. Number two was Lawrence Taylor. So or you can go back to, what was it, 1989 draft, where 5 Hall of Famers were selected in the first 6 picks. The Green Bay Packers had pick number 2. Okay, so they didn't get Troy Aikman number 1. They picked who was considered the greatest offensive lineman ever to come out. Sports Illustrated had a huge magazine spread on this guy. He looked like he just stepped off of, what is that, Venice Beach out there in California?
Yep.
Yeah. The incredible bulk. I'll never forget that cover, and all the hype behind him. He was the one bust. I think Barry Sanders came out in that draft. I think it was Deion Sanders. Was it Derek Thomas in 89? Okay,
yes.
So that was the four of the 5 Hall of Famers. Troy Aikman, of course, being the other one. So, the one bust they had, number 2 overall, with 5 Hall of Famers in that draft, and you picked the one bust. So, to me, it's about having multiple picks. To me, it's about having a lot of choices, a lot of selections. If you can do that, that's what's the key to getting a good draft. So that takes us to the next thing in the conversation. I've already teased it a few times with people talking about Sean Payton. Um, Sean Payton has been all over the news recently. Adam Schefter has had his splash report Sunday that Payton is putting together this all-star staff, including Vic Fangio, the former Dome Patrol linebacker coach, former head coach of the Broncos, former defensive coordinator with the Bears when the Bears were really, really good. And now they had a story come out today. Michael Thomas even commented on it that Payton, and it's like recycling the old Miami Dolphins story. Payton's thinking about coming back to New Orleans, bringing Tom Brady with him. What do you make of all this?
First of all, the Payton back to New Orleans with Tom Brady, that's a Mike Florio story. So that's a non-story. Mike Florio makes the National Enquirer seem like the hardest hitting news. Yeah. Folks, anything that comes out off of Florio's fingertips or out of his mouth, believe the exact opposite. It's flat. That's the flat out truth. Now, I realize Jeff Duncan wrote a piece about a week or so ago about Payton coming back to New Orleans, but keep in mind that was an editorial. That was Jeff Duncan, just like a lot of pieces that I write. That was Jeff Duncan spelling out why Payton should consider coming back to New Orleans, what it would benefit, how it would benefit the Saints, et cetera, et cetera. The bottom line is this: the Saints need Sean Payton more than Sean Payton needs the Saints. Sean Payton only needs the Saints to release him from his contract, which could be as simple as trading him, voiding him. That's not going to happen. Something like that. Payton doesn't need to come back to coaching. He probably wants to come back to coaching. But all these rumors that are going to be floating out there, the Broncos being the latest one, the one that you're kind of referring to, that came out today. And it's logical that it came out today because they just fired their coach. Anybody that just fires their coach, Sean Payton is going to be the first name on the rumor hit list. That's just because he's Sean Payton. Why wouldn't he be? Right. Is it realistic to expect Sean Payton to come back to New Orleans as the coach? No, I don't think. I'd love to see it because I love Sean Payton. But I don't think it's realistic. Yeah, he stepped away because he needed a year off, probably suffering from a little bit of burnout. Yeah, a lot of personal reasons there. It was zero beef with the ownership, zero fallout with Mickey Loomis, zero problems with the roster that he himself put together. He just needed a year away. Now when he comes back, he is relishing a new challenge somewhere else. That's the way I see it. I could be wrong, but I know damn well this: Florio ain't right.
I always think about Payton's comment, insiders are really outsiders. The only person I listen to when he says this, that is pretty much coming out directly from Payton. And that is the guy on Fox.
Glazer, yes.
Jay Glazer, because Jay Glazer and Sean Payton have a good relationship.
Yeah.
Glazer releases things when he is told it's okay to release it. And he gets a lot of good information. So if Glazer reports it, it's probably factual. Yeah, and don't forget, Sean Payton is friends with Dennis Allen. And I'm sure Dennis Allen got this job in large part because Payton gave his seal of approval. I mean, yeah, I've had this argument with quite a few people online, especially on Twitter, that Dennis Allen wasn't a quote unquote lazy choice. He was the easy choice for them because he'd been in the building since 2016.
Yeah.
They've been working with him, or 2015 actually, but they've been working with him for a long time. He was there as a secondary coach from 2008 to 2010. They know Dennis Allen through and through. They know his organization. They know his thought process. They know what he wants to accomplish. They like the man and how he approaches his job. So he was the easy choice for them strictly because they knew what they were getting with him.
Mhm.
Whereas these other guys, you had to really blow the Saints organization away with new ideas and a new approach for them to say, you know what, we'll pass on the guy we've been grooming for 6 years, and we're going to bring in an outsider and hope he imports that same culture. And the culture I'm talking about is what Bob referred to in the beginning of the show, not giving up when the season is lost. The Browns like a team that quit. The
Mhm.
Broncos quit on their
Yeah.
coach. You watch that game on Christmas Day, that was embarrassment. That was an embarrassment. I mean, it wasn't even competitive. They weren't trying. They were fighting on the sidelines, everything else. Everything that a losing organization and a loser team does. You don't see that with New Orleans. You may not like the play. I don't like some of the play calling.
No.
I was pissed off on 3rd and 1 and 2nd and 1 that Taysom's on the sideline getting a jacket put on. I'm like, what the hell are you doing out there? That's
Mhm.
what I need you out there. I don't need you on the sideline on those plays. You can go on the sideline for a jacket to warm up for a little bit on 1st and 10. But on 2nd and 3rd and 1, I want you there.
Yep.
I need you to make those plays. Keep moving the chains. But yeah, that's what a terrible organization looks like versus what you saw with New Orleans, where those guys were trying down 10-0. Looks like nothing's working right. You're on the road, you're freezing your ass off, and they still came back. And I think, if I'm wrong, I think the Browns had like an 8-minute drive in that second quarter. It started at the end of the first and carried over to the second.
Yep. 7 minutes and 52 seconds, I believe it was.
Yeah. So you're sitting there freezing your ass off. But it's 7 minutes on the game clock, more like 20 minutes standing on the sideline.
Yep.
And you're probably thinking, so let's just get this shit over with. I want to get, like Lombardi says, call it and let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
In the ice bowl. I mean, that's basically, what teams do in that situation, but not the Saints. So that's a positive. But yeah, I feel like Sean Payton, like you said, Sean Payton wants a new challenge. He wants to go against new opponents. That's why a team like I had the Chargers forever, but the Chargers are going to make the playoffs, so he's probably not going to go there because the Spanos family won't fire their coach regardless how they turn out in the playoffs. But he wants to play. Let's just say he goes to the Indianapolis Colts. You play in the AFC South now. Indiana, he grew up in Indiana. That would appeal to him there. And you get to play the Titans, the Jaguars, an organ. It's a division that you haven't had to deal with every year.
Mhm.
And it's a new challenge. And remember, he came from the Bill Parcells coaching. And what did Parcells do? Parcells, it seemed like every other year, was talking about quitting.
Yep.
Talking about leaving. That was part of his fallout with the Kraft family in New England, because Robert Kraft said, "Hey, I just bought this team. I'm in major debt, and you're talking about quitting." I mean, so yeah, that's Sean Payton has got that roaming eye. What's the next challenge? What's the next thing? I've kind of done everything I can do in New Orleans now.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot think like a Saints fan and go, well, he's loyal to the Saints. No, he's loyal to himself. He's loyal to doing the best job. He likes the fans. He loves the fans. He loves the city. But this is a business.
Yep.
And your ego is, I built this team from nothing. Give me another team. Let me see if I can build this one from nothing.
Yep.
And that's, I think, what drives him to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other loyalties that Sean Payton possesses are his personal loyalties, his friendship with Mickey Loomis, his relationship with the Benson family, and his friendship with Dennis Allen. And guess what? If Sean Payton comes back to the New Orleans Saints sideline, who gets screwed? Dennis Allen. Saints fans, I know you want to see that, but Sean Payton doesn't want to see that. And again, here's another reason why the Saints need Sean Payton more than Sean Payton needs the Saints. Wherever Sean Payton goes, assuming he's going to coach elsewhere, next year or even possibly the year after, the Saints are going to get compensation for that. So Sean Payton still helps the New Orleans Saints in a way on his way out the door. So he can get together with Mickey Loomis, sit down, and Gail Benson, and sit down with their representation on each side, and say, Mickey, Gail, I want to go here, I want to go there. Here's my wish. Everybody's been calling you. Here is my wish list, and I do believe that ultimately both sides are going to respect what the other wants and what the other needs.
Absolutely. And, everybody keeps talking about the compensation. And I think that's what's going to drive a lot of it, too. Sean Payton coming back to the Saints means no compensation,
Yep.
And how long will he stay? A year? 2 years? You look at teams that hire coaches that they either fired or left on their own. The second go around with that team wasn't as successful.
Yep.
The high point was I think Bud Grant came back 1 year in 1985, the year Archie Manning retired.
Mm-hmm.
Came back 1 year, and that was the year. That year, I think the Vikings were 7-9, or they came back from a 3-13 season, but they were like 7-9 or 9-7, and that was his last year. He didn't go to the playoffs or anything like that. The next coach was what you call it? I can't think of his name now.
Jerry Burns.
Jerry Burns, was his old offensive coordinator, Jerry Burns, that he gave the job to. So I mean, it just that's what it is. So
I mean, Joe Gibbs coming back to the Redskins, although I do think they pulled a playoff appearance or two out of it. John Gruden back to the Raiders. We all know the disaster that ended, how it ended, but even before that, it was headed towards another ugly divorce. Art Shell back to the Raiders. I know I'm missing one out there. It was another one that happened in the 80s or the 90s, but it was not successful. It's those kind of things, and I just Sean Payton is the kind of coach that makes an average team, a bad team average, average team good, good team potentially great. But Sean Payton does not fix the fact that there's no quarterback here. Sean Payton does not fix the fact that they still have major needs at backup running back, defensive tackle, and safety, et cetera. We have plenty of time to outline all the roster holes. A Sean Payton trade gives you additional assets to potentially fill all those holes.
That's exactly it. And that's why I said it's not where you pick in the draft. It's how many picks you have in the top 100 players. And right now, we need picks. We need at least one first rounder. It was funny. I'm reading people saying, we'll take the Broncos can have Peyton. We'll just take Jerry Jeudy, and we'll take who was the other guy they had listed? Somebody else that was really Patrick Surtain. Is it Patrick Surtain on that?
Yeah, no, Surtain I would pick. Or I would take, but I don't think, Alan, any Sean Payton trade will involve really any significant players at all, because those players will have to be paid relatively quickly, and this is also a team that's clawing out of a salary cap hole. The more rookies they hit on, obviously, is a big hit on the field, but you're also talking about rookie contracts, very team-friendly rookie contracts, where you can kind of let those veterans, those highly paid veterans, kind of walk out the door one by one as you do not a rebuild, but a reboot.
You must be talking about, my brother said more to the Colts.
I saw it.
He better be talking about, Jim Moore Jr., because I think Jim Moore Sr. is 88 years old now, and he looks very good for 88.
He does.
And what's funny, okay, so here, I'm glad you wrote this, because I was just about ready to talk about this. So Sean Payton going to the Colts. Okay, so let's just say Schefter's right, and Payton is putting together an all-star staff, and he wants to get Vic Fangio as
And I can
as his
see that actually.
coordinator. Okay, you realize that Jim Morris Sr. was fired from the Indianapolis Colts because he wouldn't fire his defensive coordinator, who was Vic Fangio. So, the Ursay family, I mean, bring Joe Vitt along. They got plenty of Vicodin for him. But I'm sorry, let's say that out loud. Shouldn't have said that. But yeah, I mean, it's the Ursay is not going to want to have Vic Fangio back again. So, I just don't see him going to the Colts. Yeah, he's from Indianapolis. I mean, from Indiana. It would kind of be a hometown thing. The Colts are at rock bottom, So, I mean, you saw, what was it, Christmas Eve, giving Matt Ryan once again blowing now the largest lead in NFL history.
Yeah.
It was 32 points. That's what the Houston Oilers blew to the Buffalo Bills.
Mhm.
Now it's 33 points to the Minnesota Vikings. Oh God. Yeah, I don't think so, man. You thought I don't like Dennis Winston? Wait till we have Matt Ryan in this team, and let's watch me rip this guy. Matt Ryan is done. He really is. He is. Let him go back to the 49ers. Let him back up the 49ers guys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Please.
Matt Ryan needs to retire. He really does. Yeah, I just can't see him going to the Colts. I think he is looking for a major market team.
Mhm.
I don't think Ron Rivera gets fired, but I think the Commanders would have been a possibility. I know
Same.
the Giants were last year. He wants to go to a major market team that's pretty much hit rock bottom with a good ownership that he can build something. And that doesn't mean Dallas.
No.
Because Dallas is already, they already think they're a coach away from a Super Bowl, So, and it's Jerry Jones wants all the credit. That's why Jimmy Johnson got fired.
Yep.
Because he didn't give Jerry Jones enough credit. I know everybody has the fantasy of Peyton going to the Cowboys. I just unless Peyton has less of an ego than I think he does, I just can't see it happening. It's just it's not going to work.
Sean Payton is also a very smart man, and Sean and Jerry Jones actually are fairly close friends, and that's why I said Sean Payton is a very smart man. He wants to keep Jerry Jones as a friend, and that I can't see that happening if Sean goes to work for Jerry, because Jerry Jones has not changed, will not change, and I think lacks the capacity, lacks the ego. To change. Parcells was able to put up with Jerry Jones because Parcells was at a point in his life where he didn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
Even Bill drew a line, in the sand and ended up walking away. I don't see it working out with Sean Payton. And Sean has said this himself, there's very few stable ownerships in the NFL. In fact, he used one of my favorite words, the word dysfunctional, to describe a lot of franchises. He didn't name any specifically. So I do think if Sean Payton goes somewhere with questionable ownership history, then that team better have something in place from a competitive aspect to attract Sean Payton. The Chargers would have been a great example. The Spanos family has always been a mess too. Cheap. But the Chargers have Justin Herbert. Kyler Murray, whether you believe he's a franchise quarterback or not, is irrelevant. If Sean Payton believes that Kyler Murray is a franchise quarterback and they have all kinds of offensive weapons there, then maybe Sean can ignore the fact that the Bidwell family owns the Cardinals. Derek Carr, He's always been fond of Derek Carr as a quarterback. You're talking about big markets. Vegas is a pretty big market.
Mhm.
Is that enough for Sean Payton to look past the Davis ownerships? It's things like that we're going to end. This is going to be the news of the off season. It's going to be fun to cover.
Yeah, it's interesting, and my brother brings up Houston. Houston's a dysfunctional organization,
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally dysfunctional. So I don't think Houston has much interest for Peyton because of that. It's just there's too many things that are wrong that
Yeah.
continually go wrong in that organization. They have the draft picks. They have, they're probably going to pick number 1 overall again this year. So that is, yeah, I can see that. Except Bill Cowher had pretty much said he was retired.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing. Sean Payton has never quite said he's retired. Bill Cowher won that Super Bowl. He got his ring. He had been trying to get for a long time, and he was just done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that feeling from Sean. I think he just wants a fresh challenge,
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to step away and cover it from TV standpoint, but really just wanted to look at the entire league and see how this entire league looked. Because I had heard that in 2015 he had thought about going to the Colts at one point. When they were talking about contract negotiations and stuff, and ultimately money will drive it, which is why I don't think the Davis family and the ownership of the Raiders will ever work, because they don't have money.
Right.
They can't even afford to really fire Josh McDaniels.
Right.
But teams that have money do interest him. Denver does have a lot of money. They don't have a lot to build with, but Denver has a lot of money because it's the part of the Walmart family.
Mm-hmm.
owns that team. So, and that would be an interesting challenge for him to be out in Denver and build the team. But yeah, it does remind me of Bill Cowher until Bill Cowher finally. I mean, you must have heard Bill Cowher to Carolina every other year.
Yeah.
Because he was from Carolina, so it made sense from that standpoint. Just like I heard Bill Parcells to Tampa Bay. My God, it seemed like every time Parcells retired, Tampa Bay rumors start up again. He's going to Tampa. He's going to Tampa. In fact, the last time, I think this was before he took the Jets job, or maybe right after he left the Jets, Tampa was planning a press conference announcing Parcells to come to the Bucs.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. So, I mean, that's how serious that stuff was. But that was the Glazer family, so what do you expect?
Right.
So, yeah, that will be the news of the offseason. I do think he goes somewhere next year to coach. I do not think it would be the Saints, simply because, like you said, there's too many things that he doesn't want to upset, including Dennis Allen. And it's in our best interest he doesn't come back. I know people are tired of Dennis Allen because for most people, it's because he's the anti-Sean Payton. He's Jim Moore. He is a non-charismatic, coach on the sideline. So every little mistake that the team makes, see, this is why Dennis Allen's not a good coach. As if some of this stuff didn't happen when Sean Payton was around, But at the same time, Sean Payton had a Super Bowl trophy behind him, and the charisma and the aggressiveness to kind of make up for the fact he called a tight end double reverse, or the fact he, challenged plays and burned all his timeouts on bad challenges. That stuff kind of gets forgotten because you won so many games. Yeah. I just I'm curious to see after Black Monday, you know, what coaches get fired and what happens next. Here's the thing I think that's not going to happen. Yeah, he was. I have a feeling at Carolina, depending on Carolina, if Carolina wins out, do you think Steve Wilkes loses his job as head coach at Carolina?
Man, I don't know. I don't think he should because he's obviously done a fantastic job. But after what we saw, and I forget the guy's name off the top of my head, the interim coach of the Raiders that completely turned around the Gruden disaster and led Vegas to the playoffs last year on the brink of upsetting the Bengals. And he got screwed over. So it's because of that, that I think. Night, honey, I love you. I think if Carolina can get a flashy name, because that's what Tepper wants. He wants flash. Forget Sean Payton, folks. Sean Payton is not going in the division. Forget just stop it. Because again, the Saints can block that, and they will. But if another flashy name comes available, say Mike McCarthy does get axed by the Cowboys, that's a Super Bowl champion coach. Say Jim Harbaugh wants to come back to the NFL. That's as flashy as you get outside of Sean Payton. So I think Wilkes has a chance to keep his job. But if there's a flashy name out there, then Carolina's going after him. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Soraka, the guy who, I think that's how you say his name, the interim head coach for the Raiders. It's clear that team was a better team. And again, we talk about players that quit on a team or players that, lose the respect. Coaches lose the respect of the players. Did you see Josh Jacobs' comments after that game? And, and Derek, it's Derek Carr, not David Carr. Derek Carr.
I do that too all the time.
Derek Carr's comments the week before about the play calling and everything else. It's obvious that Josh McDaniels is an albatross around their neck, and he does not have the respect of his players anymore. So somebody's got to go. And they had a story out earlier how the Raiders can't afford to fire him. Because Mark Davis, who I've said it before, and I'm going to get hell for this, but I mean, he really does look like somebody who takes a short bus to practice and to the games. He's got that awful haircut, and he dresses funny. Where's Dad used to be the walking billboard. He tries to do that same thing, but on him, it's like the special ed edition version of Raiders clothing.
If they made a movie Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest, he could be dumbest.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Thank you. I couldn't remember his name. I just know he was Hispanic. I think he was Hispanic. I think he was Spanish. I know he was an older man, but it was like he was just a good coach. Give him what he had. And they came very close to upsetting the Bengals, So I agree with you. It's just one of those things that money will speak on that. He will hold his nose about the weather because at least Indy plays indoors. Denver, the weather's bad, but it's beautiful there most year round. It's a challenge of playing the AFC West. You're playing the Chiefs, you're playing the Chargers, you're playing the Raiders. Old AFL look,
high profile.
Denver is still in the market, but and you still have Russell Wilson, and yeah, it looks like Russell Wilson's done, but part of it I think is Hackett's coaching.
It could be. I mean, again, everybody don't assume that it has to be a great young quarterback. If Sean Payton thinks that he can fix Russell Wilson and sees that Russ has another 4, 5, 6 years in him, then that suddenly becomes an attractive destination for Sean Payton.
Yeah. I mean, he probably could look at Denver and say, yeah, they're just a few players away. We can do something in free agency, bring in a running back. I'll try and get Taysom Hill from the Saints and get him over there because he wants Taysom. It's just there's a lot. And we're really just speculating, but I wouldn't write Denver off. I think with the Chargers falling out of it now, I think Arizona is really high on his list because he sees a lot of potential in Arizona because there is a young quarterback. They do have exciting players on offense. They play in the NFC West, so you get to go against the 49ers, you get to go against the Rams and the Seahawks, all nemesis of his.
And mine, but
yeah. So it's, there is a challenge, and Arizona's never won anything. They haven't won a championship since 1947. They've been to one Super Bowl in their life, and they lost an incredible game versus the Steelers. But still, it's just that potential to do something.
And that's another thing too. Sean Payton is viewed in some New Orleans circles almost godlike because he brought that championship, the first ever championship, to New Orleans. So for a man with an ego, and I don't know, I keep talking about ego as if it's a bad thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that. To bring a champion for the first ever championship to a place like Arizona, the Chargers, a couple other teams that we have named, to do that twice in your career, that elevates you into rarefied coaching air right there.
Detroit would have been an option for him at one point too, but Detroit has bad ownership. The Fords are not a good ownership family. When they talk about teams that get comfortable losing or do not prioritize winning, the McCaskey's family in Chicago, the Ford family in Detroit, those are team organizations that do not prioritize winning. They are perfectly satisfied with losing. So real quick, so the Saints have to play the Eagles. Unfortunately, the Eagles lost to the Cowboys this past weekend. If the Eagles would have won that game, I think they would have won the division, probably had the number 1 seed locked up. Had very little to play for over the next couple of games. Now they still have something to play for. I don't know if we won't know until, of course, Friday if Jalen Hurts is going to play or not. I know he sat out last week, and Gardner wasn't bad. They weren't the reason that they lost to the Cowboys. But how do you see this game playing out?
And you're right. It's such a killer that Philly lost to Dallas. Of everything that could have gone right for New Orleans last weekend, outside of the Saints winning, nothing went right. The Lions, who were on fire, lost to the Panthers. The Eagles blew it against Dallas. Arizona showed why they're going to be looking for a head coach this offseason and choking away to Tampa Bay. But with the Eagles, you're right. Gardner Minshew, he's probably one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL. You can win games with Gardner Minshew, but Philadelphia's offense is a drastically different beast with Minshew than it is Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts was a legitimate MVP candidate. because of everything that he can do on a football field. And because of that, like you said, Philadelphia hasn't clinched anything yet, a playoff berth. That's it. But they need one more win to grab not only home field of the number 1 seed, but even the NFC East title. And if I'm Nick Sirianni, I am playing guys that if they can go, I am playing guys this week, because if I beat the Saints, then I can take next week off against a division rival who is going to be physical. Then I get the bye before I have to prepare for a divisional playoff match. So Jalen Hurts and other players that are nicked up, they're essentially getting 2.5 weeks off before they have to be pressed back into action. Now, if Jalen, and I think Jalen will play, Friday is definitely the key. If Jalen is even limited practice on Thursday, then I think he's going to play. But if he does, they're not going to take any unnecessary chances with him. So we're not going to see as many RPO options. They gave the Saints absolute fits the last 2 years they played them. But Philly is still going to be a handful because Hurts might not be the runner. It might not be used as the runner that he's capable of being, but he's really remade himself and developed so well as a passer. And they have speed weapons all over the place. Everybody wants to talk about Miami's athleticism at receiver. Philadelphia is the NFC equal to that. And that's liable to give the Saints some problems. If there was a game that Marshawn Lattimore needs to come back for down the stretch, it's this one. So we'll find, again, just like with Jalen, we'll find out about Marshawn this week. And everybody wants to talk about Philadelphia's offense, and rightfully so. I mean, it is near the top of the league in every conceivable category. But the Eagles are also ranked. Hold on, I have it right in front of me. They're one of the best pass defenses and overall defenses in the league. And worst, if you're a Saints fan, they've caused the second most turnovers in the NFL. They're a little banged up on. I know you're shaking your head. I was too. They're a little banged up on that side, and I don't think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is going to play, ladies and gentlemen. The Saints are going to have to run the ball against them, because the times that I have seen Philadelphia this year, teams have been able to run the ball against them. So if the Saints can establish the run, be patient, set balance, and get some stops on defense, this is not going to be a 17-10 game. Philadelphia is just too talented for that. And the weather is supposed to be, it might rain, but it's supposed to be warmer. You're going to have to, the Saints are going to have to at least be capable of putting 28 or 30 on the board. And I'm not sure they are. This is going to be a tough one. It is.
It's funny because the defense has been playing progressively better since about the midway point of this season. Holding teams to fewer than 20 points on average. You have to really go back to the Arizona game, and there were 2 pick sixes in that game to really kind of push that score past the normal mark. But the Saints defense has been holding a lot of offenses down to under 20 points a game. The problem is on offense, we just don't score enough. Mm-hmm. We score on average 11 to 12 points a game. That shutout against the 49ers is really pushing the average down, but it's under. We're still scoring under 20 points a game if you throw that game out.
Yeah,
and that's the problem. The defense does what it needs to do to keep the game close, but the offense can't seem to score enough points, or they have the lead and cannot put the game away.
Mm-hmm.
So because you had to settle for field goals instead of touchdowns. This is going to be a tough game. I expect them to lose. I'll be pleasantly surprised that they win. I don't expect, believe it or not, I really don't expect us to get our heads kicked in.
No, I don't either. Now, if the game starts out badly, I could see that snowballing very quickly. But I'm with you. I could see this being a 1-score game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. My wife said that's the worst part about watching the Saints is because they
Oh
give
yeah.
you hope. They give you hope they can pull the upset off. Um, so if they lose, regardless what happens in any of the games, their slim playoff hopes are gone.
Correct.
Which that's not what I'm playing for anymore anyway. I'm playing for as best record as we can possibly get to just screw Philadelphia out of a draft pick. And Philadelphia's attitude is we win. We not only win the game and lock up the division, we also get a higher draft pick from the Saints next year. So, I think mentally I'm prepared for that kind of outcome. That way I'm not going to be upset, on New Year's Day. To me, I just want to win the Carolina game the following week.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be something, though, if we somehow pull off an upset, we beat Carolina, so we've won our 2 games. Carolina beats the Bucks this weekend. I think that's who they play.
Yes.
So now the game Sunday matters for the division, but the Bucks are playing the Falcons. They, of course, push that game till 3:00. So the Saints have to watch the Falcons play the Bucks, and the Bucks do what the Bucks do and lose most of the game, and then have this miracle Brady comeback, in the fourth quarter in the final drive of the game or overtime, and of course win the game, kick the Saints out of the playoffs, kind of like 2004 when we were watching the Rams and the Jets and hoping the Jets upset the Rams so we can get the playoffs.
Yep.
I mean, that to me would be a typical Saints kind of ending,
Yeah, and that's exactly the way it played out last year with the 49ers and Rams too. So what the heck? I look at a playoff berth at this point as a pleasant surprise, like you. I am hoping for a good game against Philadelphia, playing up to their potential. And to end the season strong against Philly, and Carolina. Anything that comes along with that would be a pleasant surprise. I do think that the team has done enough to keep Dennis Allen around for another year, like it or not, Saints fans.
Yeah.
And you pick up the pieces. You pick up the pieces and you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, we'll talk about more of this in the offseason, but I think a lot of the needs that we've talked about all year long, I think that's what Allen's going to focus on. I think the front office is going to focus on that for next year, and that will be the year they really grade Allen.
Yeah.
And listen, if you're one of these fans who wants to tank for a great pick, then you want Allen to be the coach next year. You want Allen to stay next year because you want to get Caleb Williams out of USC as the quarterback because he's supposedly the next Patrick Mahomes. So it's a win-win. Yeah, you gotta sit through another crappy year maybe, but you want to have that happen. So I mean, but I just want to get through this season, and I want to do that and end it on a high note, so we're not 6-11. Yeah, 6-11 is what you would be. I got to get used to 17 schedule, 17 games.
I know.
In 1978, it was 16 games. So, that's most of my life there. 14 games when I first started watching football. Real quick then, because I know you get ready to do the Smoking Man from X-Files. What do you have coming up tomorrow night on the Bayou Blitz?
Oh, I'm sure Brendan and I are going to have to address all the Sean Payton stories, just like you and I did tonight. We're gonna recap the Browns' victory a little bit, and we're gonna detail what they need to do to beat Philadelphia for sure. Because whether you expect them to or not, this is the team's last gasp. And we'll just kind of do a fun recap for we talked about having a guest on, and we just decided we'll have a fun recap, to the year, to the calendar year, before we get ready for 2023. So we're hoping for a laid back holiday type show.
Oh yeah. Well, real quick, and I had it up there earlier. Right now is a 77 Saints Eagles game. But the last game where the Saints played in the coldest weather, was a Philadelphia Eagles, that playoff game. They won that game, and it's the only road playoff game they've ever won. So we have an interesting history with the Eagles.
Yes.
Just a lot of important wins in franchise history happened against the Eagles. The 2006 playoff game, the 2018 playoff game. So it's fun. In 1992 playoff game, we won't talk about that one.
No,
I mean
that never happened.
Yeah, the Eagles, I think, Eagles and the Vikings are the two teams who played the most in the postseason.
Yep.
So it's a lot of history with this organization. People are now talking about coaches that they wish the Saints would have gotten. Now Doug Peterson's come back up, the former Eagles head coach. And I always tell them the same thing. You remember why Doug Peterson got fired from the Eagles, right? A lot of injuries, questionable offensive play calling, questionable clock management, and quarterback problems. That's why Peterson got fired. He's doing well his first year in Jacksonville, but he's got a lot more talent there than you would expect for a team looking for a new coach. But Peterson would be another hashtag fire Doug Peterson if he was here, honestly, because we have all the things that were his problems in Philadelphia. So the grass isn't always greener. Just saying. And one last stat that I heard before I let you go. Did you know that, I think Jeff Duncan threw this out there, the Saints are one of about 14 teams with a 6-8 record.
Yeah.
Right now in the league. We have been saying for all year that the league is hopelessly, parity rules, hopelessly mediocre. So the guys who want to fire Dennis Allen, who are you going to get to replace him that's going to get a better record right now? That's something to think about. You think you could get a guy who's going to be able to do what, I don't know, what the Giants coach was doing to an extent early in this year, what Doug Peterson's doing right now at Jacksonville. But basically, you're going to get a 6-8 team. You are what your record says you are. Anyway, let you go smoke, even though you got a cold.
That makes sense.
Huh? Yeah,
makes sense.
We had the general manager of our place is a smoker, and he's had COVID twice. And I'm like, yeah, by all means, go ahead and smoke. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us. You guys, I'm glad you had a good Christmas. I hope you all have a good New Year's.
Yes.
We'll be back after New Year's Day. I can't believe it's 2023 already.
I know. I got to stop getting older. But yeah, Happy New Year to you and your family. Alan, Happy New Year to all of you guys out there.
We ran out of time too. Wanted to talk about Franco, but I guess we'll talk about Franco maybe next week.
Sure.
But anyway, join us next time. We'll talk about the Eagles game, preview the final game of the season against the Panthers, and then either the odds of getting the postseason or Black Monday, one or the other. We'll find out after this weekend. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.